Happy Memorial Day. Wow. Look at us. Man, the sun is shining. I don't know where you are right now, but the weather is peaking, guys. It's about 80 degrees here in New York City. I am wearing a tank top. If you didn't know, because you're not following on the YouTube page, check us out there, guys. But yeah, it is hot. I just finished taping an audition. And that's kind of why I'm in this. But, it's also just hot in here. So I'm keeping it real. Yeah, happy Memorial Day. Happy Monday. I hope you guys are celebrating the fallen soldiers, the people that have served this beautiful country of ours, even when we sometimes feel like it's a little bit convoluted and messy. There's still incredible people who have fought for this country and fought for our freedoms, and I think we deserve to pay them a lot of respect and our homage. So this episode is tributed to those guys, those ladies, those people that have fought and died and moved on to the next place, wherever that might be. We pay our respects to all of them. Guys, if you didn't already know, I have made a movie called I America. It's the poster behind me right now. And we just put that up on our Patreon page. We also just sent it out to all the people that contributed to the movie. It was a real community made project. The people in the community came through and financed it. It was an Indiegogo project that I had about 300 people contribute to, which is pretty incredible. And so this weekend I sent that out to everybody that contributed, which is awesome. I'm really excited to share that with everybody and let them see the fruits of their finances. I had a blast doing that movie, and I feel very proud of it. And it is very much in the spirit of soldiers and PTSD, and what we are keeping in our memories and celebrating this Memorial Day. And so, if you didn't see that, it actually went to my junk folder. So check your junk folder, because that's where mine went. So give it a watch if you haven't already. And if you haven't seen it, and if you haven't or weren't a part of the initial Indiegogo campaign where you were able to contribute, I now have a Patreon page where that movie is now there for everybody and anybody to watch. It's only $5 to subscribe to the Patreon. I know it's weird, guys. I hate asking people for money. I sometimes feel like all I do now is like ask for money, and it's so stupid, and I'm getting a little tired of it. But it's just kind of part of the thing. I'm a creative. I'm an artist. I'm trying to make stuff. I'm trying to give you something that you feel good about. $5 isn't really too much, and I feel like I'm doing a lot of work, and I think it's worth it. So hopefully you feel the same way. Check it out, guys. It's at patreon.com/the precipice of delusion. We're in the process of moving, so it's going to help me build out this studio. It's going to help me just keep this podcast going. It actually takes quite a bit of time and energy to put this podcast together, do all the editing, make all the content. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. But I really want to elevate it and keep growing it and making it a thing. And so, time is money, and every little bit counts. So if you feel compelled to contribute to the project, I will not stop you. Again, it's at patreon.com/the precipice of delusion. And all those patrons will get exclusive content and will be shouted out on every single episode. And we'll celebrate them, and we'll give them all the good exclusive stuff. I say we, but it's really just me. So cool. Yeah. Welcome to summer, guys. It's right around the corner, and it is spicing up. I am sweating, and I am feeling good. I really do feel good. I'm in a interesting space in my life. It's been kind of a roller coaster lately, and I'm taking a lot of weight off of my back, and I'm feeling like there's good things coming, whether they are or aren't, because I'm kind of just in a headspace of joy being kind of here with me and knowing that I'm doing all right and that everything's going well. Sometimes I wish I was like wealthier. My dad always says, I wish I was wealthier instead of so good looking. And yeah, I wish I was either. But yeah, it's the ongoing thing, and I'm feeling good. I like entering this new season, and all the things I got going on are very exciting, and I'm excited to share more things with you as they kind of unfold. But in the meantime, we have an awesome episode for you today, my friends. This is a unique episode for me as well. Today, I'm talking to my friend Dan Olson. Dan is an actor. He is a theater actor extraordinaire. He's a television actor. He's been in a bunch of shows on TV that you've probably watched. He's traveled the world and acted on stages internationally, and has a really wonderful repertoire. I'll tag all of his stuff in the show notes. But he's a legend, and he was one of my first friends out here in New York City. And what is very interesting about this episode is that despite the interest or lack thereof, he is trans, and I didn't know that when we were friends, or we still are friends. But I just didn't know up until this episode that he was transgender, and that played no part in my opinion of him whatsoever. In fact, we talk about it. It kind of made me even more fascinated by his journey and his story. And we dive into it. This episode is by no means like about transgenderism or like the controversies surrounding that, but really just kind of like a piece about him opening up and feeling like he can be in a new space to comfortably discuss, who he is and where he's at. And not that he ever has been really like too afraid of doing that, but um, he does it here. And I feel very honored and humbled that he was willing to share all of that beautiful insight with me. And his story is wonderful. And he's just so smart and he's so thoughtful. And, he just really has kind of like a really beautiful approach to life and being a person and being an artist. And I really admire him a lot. Um, yeah, he's just a great person, and I'm just really honored to know him. He sent me a text after I sent him some stuff about the episode, and I was wondering, like, it kind of got like in my head, like, is this too exploitative? Like, are we just exploiting like the trans part of this episode? I don't want to do that because, like, it's not just that. There's so much more to this conversation than that aspect, and I just didn't want it to seem like I was really pushing that and exploiting that. And he was telling me that it doesn't feel exploitative really at all. And in fact, he was saying that, there's many trans people that might get frustrated by the dismissal of the conflict at large. And he says that's part of what he's trying to promote, quote, the abject normalcy of living good lives honestly, and when and wherever one can. And he hopes that it starts a conversation, and that's really the point. And it's beautiful, He doesn't like boast or air, like make it a thing. It's like it's very much just like a part of who he is, and it's fucking beautiful. And I'm so like over this whole controversy of like people that aren't one thing, like criticizing something else. It's just like just fucking stay in your lane and let people be what they want to be. Like, god damn it, there's so many beautiful people in the world, and if we just shut the fuck up and let people just like do what they want to do and be who they want to be, like, who cares? Like, let them go for it. It's their right and their freedoms, and in fact, you might even be able to make a fucking friend along the way. So just open yourself up and be a little bit more compassionate, have a little bit more empathy, and maybe we can start having a little bit more of a loving world for all of us to live in. That's my hope for sure. But yeah, I've spoke for too long, and I just want to dive into this episode. I can't thank Dan enough for being here. It was a wonderful talk. I am very honored again that he is here. Happy Memorial Day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us. I love you so much. This is a really special episode to me, and I can't wait to be best friends with you. Here's the episode. Love ya.
How are you?
Oh, alive and well. Yeah, I'm so ecstatic. This is so great. It's been such a long time since we got to hang, and this is just a fun opportunity to do the thing that I've been trying to do, which is kind of like be an apostle
Hell
of
yeah.
entertainment, of philosophy, of ideas of community building, and it's just an outrageous time to be able to do it, given the fact that COVID's in the rear view. Finally.
Dude, it is that indeed, man. And I haven't felt this uh like satiated artistically in a long time. And it's weird because I'm not like really doing anything artistic. I'm just having conversations, but it's making me
Dude.
feel like I am tapping into something that is like is fueling my tank in a new kind of way and making
Hmm.
me um, really kind of like look at my own experience a little bit differently and how I want to move forward. And I'm
Yeah,
really grateful for that because I'm really shifting in a lot of ways right now. I think a lot of us have been since the pandemic and even before that. So thanks
for
for
sure.
being here.
Dude, and it's so much more than even that. Like this is such a creative endeavor, you know? Like this is taking two sets of thought humans and letting them make some babies by bouncing off of each other. It's great. It's exactly
Yeah.
what has gotten me into traveling the world in the first place, is that you just get to see so many different experiences. You get to in I guess embody entire cultural shifts in perspective, and it's brought me so far in such a relatively short period of time. Like college was kind of useless, but everything that's
Yeah.
happened since then professionally has been so eye-opening, and the number of
Yeah.
people that it's put me in range of is unbelievable for a dumb farm kid from Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're doing it. And
Yeah,
you have been doing it.
and
And
so are you. It's
you,
awesome.
yeah, no, it's great. I can't believe that I've been in New York for 12 years. It's like, what the fuck happened? Like, I don't even have any idea how I like made it through so much of the treacherous nonsense that like made me just want to be like absolutely not and wind up on the other side of it like here doing this and other things, it's
Yeah,
pretty remarkable. And for you
yeah.
to, I mean, you are you in New York right now?
Now, Kate and I are in Southern Oregon. We've been here for a couple of years
That's
now. I
right. That's
came
right. That's
back
right.
from Japan to Southern Oregon, and it's been a great fit so far. I think we're kind of learning the limits of it at this point, you know? So we're not going to be here
Nice.
forever. It's just we're here for now, and it's afforded me the opportunity to do a lot of work in a relatively short period of time. You know, it's like New York, you're trying to stitch things together, and it might be months in
Yeah.
between gigs or something like that. But here, I get to stay pretty consistently at it, and I never let it too far outside of my periphery.
It's awesome. The Great Pacific Northwest. That's my homeland.
NW baby,
Come
Seattle.
on.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Dude, can I get something off my chest real quick that might
Please,
seem like I'm a Neanderthal, but I just got to do it?
please.
So I spent the first like I've known you probably for like a maybe over a decade at this point.
It's at least a decade, yeah.
Yeah. And I never knew that you were trans.
And that's the thing, is that for the longest time, I kept thinking that I could just like keep it to myself and
Yeah.
live my life, and it was fine, you know. But the longer I was away from the environment that I was raised in, like I love my family, but they are only interested in procreation. And if you're
Mhm.
doing anything with your life that prevents you from making babies, they're not into it. And for trans identification specifically, there's not a biblical reason why anyone would have a problem with it. It's just that they like to
Yeah.
manufacture reasons to, again, just make sure that people keep cranking out those kids, and
Did
I'm
you
glad
have
that they
some
do.
Yeah, totally. Did you have like obviously you don't owe me anything and you're just being you and that was totally enough for me and it continues to be enough for me. You never needed to tell me anything. I wasn't entitled to that information. You weren't required to say anything. But like was there a part of you that like didn't want to share that information with the world or did it just not ever come up?
Um, It's not that I didn't want to, because I've been able to. I'm such a slow burn when it comes
Hmm.
to meeting and becoming comfortable with people. Because growing up, I was just used to getting my ass kicked. you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you
Wow.
grow up in farm country and you're not a strapping farm kid. You get picked on by the people that get picked on by their parents for not being good enough farmers. It's just this cycle of
Yeah.
violence. And I had internalized all of that, and I was like, I'm going to have to be real careful about who I tell this to, because it doesn't affect anything about our relationship otherwise. It's just
Totally.
that it's a way that I have come to understand my experience in the world. It's like you wake up and you accept the fact that people are going to respond to you based on certain facts that are true about you that you had no ability to have predicted or to have controlled. And so that's
For
what it is for
sure.
me. If you,
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it makes me more fascinated by you, which is, just a gift because I was already to begin with. And it's just like an extension of who you are that's more interesting. And so it's just like fucking sweet, dude. This is
and if it's
amazing,
any and if it's any consolation whatsoever, I think part of the reason that I never felt compelled to expressly tell you, I feel like I may have hinted at it from time to time, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, like, I could pick up on your energy. I was never concerned that if I told you that it was going to matter.
Sure. Sure.
And
Sure.
I think that's part of what drove me into acting in the first place is just the opportunity to be honest. I love honesty. I'm not a good
Yeah.
actor because I'm a good actor. I'm a good actor because I'm honest.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's the thing that has always appealed, and it's the type of relationship that I want to maintain and foster and curate.
Yeah.
And it has always been a source of joy and encouragement, because the more that I learn about how little people care,
For
it's
sure.
no one gives a shit,
Right.
and they
Right.
have no reason to. You're like,
Exactly.
how could it possibly matter? But for whatever
Right.
reason, this thing that is only a private experience becomes this public talking point. And
Yeah.
I would say that I hate it, but I'm like, whatever. I'm going to keep my head below it because it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting because like people are, I had a friend a few years ago who like took me to dinner and like came out to me and was just like, I got to tell you, man, that, like I'm gay. And I was just like, awesome.
Okay,
What do you want me like? I don't. It was
go
like
get
he
him,
wanted,
Tiger.
like even he even said like we've had conversations afterwards. He was like, yeah, like I didn't know how like the reception was going to be. I didn't know that nobody was going to care. Like I've been conditioned to believe that people are going to care, so I just didn't say anything. And I like really had to like take you out to dinner to like let you know. Like I had to like get you in a safe space and like make sure that you were like had an appetizer in you at first and like had a little drink and was like ready. And I was like, man, I feel so bad. You were like sitting with that information and like you told me, and I'm sorry that I didn't have a better response for you, but I was genuinely just like, dude, what can I order now? Like, what do you fucking want?
See, and
You
I think
know?
maybe that's part of it too, right? Is that, like, for gay men and women specifically, I feel like there is absolutely no obligation to tell anyone except for the person that you're actively trying to have sex with. That's about the
Yeah.
only person that
Right.
matters.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
that's assuming it's one person. That's, it could be whoever you're into. Like, I think that's part of it, was where consent is involved. That's just another facet of honesty.
Yeah.
It's just transparency when it comes to areas that matter. Otherwise, I think a lot of people in the older generations operate by the don't ask, don't tell about everything. It has nothing to do
Yeah.
with just sexuality. They just don't talk about stuff that is hard to deal with, like, whether it's abuse or it's anything along the lines of any uncomfortable personal revelations, or how it is. It's like when you're a kid, everything feels so important. It feels so life changing, and it is, because it's the first time you've experienced it. It's until you start to
Yeah.
notice the cycles and patterns that
Yeah.
you start to accept the fact that there is going to always be this pocket of people that are secure enough within themselves not to concern themselves with what other people do in their own bedrooms.
Yeah. For sure. Wow. Well, I appreciate you telling me now. And like again, like you never owed me anything. I appreciate you you've always been very transparent and honest and just real with me since day one. Like I've always loved spending time with you and getting to have, like one-on-ones and group hangs and whatever we've done. It's always been just like I am stoked to see Dan. This is the best.
Oh
And
yeah.
um but I do just like for the purpose of like navigating this talk want to like get it out of the way and talk like when did you transition and then like because That was a long time ago, I assume.
Well, I mean, so let's talk about just the concept behind it. Is that
Okay.
transition just implies that you're in a state of flux, like you're in a state
Uh-huh.
of change, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, it's not a destination. It's just this is a thing that I'm doing to benefit my life. And I fortunately stumbled across a really great doctor here in Southern Oregon who I could have unguarded conversations about it with. And she's been fantastic. She's made no bones about the fact that she's like, I think we should really go slow with this. And I was like, I would agree. I'm not interested in racing into imbalance. The whole point is to try and find a sense of chemical inner balance.
Yeah.
And so far we've succeeded. So I've really only been in the chemical process of it for about 2 years now. And it's been a great revelation. I've learned so much about masculinity and femininity. I've learned about myself. I've learned about what bodies are and how they function in the presence of just a different worldview, a different chemical worldview. And it's insane to me how how anybody would deny another human being the opportunity to feel this sense of balance.
Yeah. How much of your curiosity of uh, the masculine and feminine uh, experience has bled into your like interest to be an artist?
Oh, I don't know that it's 100% that, but it's approaching it. There's a lovely director that my partner, Caitlin and I are
Hmm.
engaged now. So
Ah, congrats, man.
rock
That's
and
awesome.
roll. Yeah. Kate and I have a mutual friend, Aaron Blanton, who's a director who directed a piece that Kate produced with me in a supporting role. And he asked me at one point after we'd gotten to know each other for a couple of years, he's like, uh, so this is starting to make sense now. So are you trans because you're an actor, or are you an actor because you're trans? And I
Uh,
was like, no, I'm an actor because I'm trans. I've been masking my whole life trying to hide in broad daylight. And it's worked really well by and large. It's really easy to do it when you're 6'6", but that's part of the issue is that because you're seen in this, and I say the word superior, literally just above you,
mhm.
uh, you're constantly literally looking down on people. And metaphorically, it feels like there's this parental relationship in a lot of cases. And it's frustrating because that is kind of the aspect where it's like we perceive masculinity above us. It's this thing that we're looking up to, and femininity is culturally this thing that we're looking down upon. And it's just that's part of where the toxic relationship between the two starts. But
What do you think you were hiding from?
you're saying as far as like within the realm of playing other characters?
Of you, of yourself, of just you? Like, what were you hiding
Oh,
yourself?
I was just literally hiding from what I was led to believe were the shackles that would drag me to hell. This is this self-awareness. If you just ignore it, then you can still go to heaven and be a happy little scion of the Lord. And it was one of those areas where if you suppress it long enough and you have no real reason for it, no one's ever been able to communicate effectively why. I've learned it. No one's ever been able to state it to me, but you kind of pick up on what the patterns are there as well. I guess I've just accepted the fact that by acknowledging it, I took away all of its power. And by even doing the simple attempt to chemically balance my body, um, I've learned that there's not really any further destination for me to go. That was part of why my doctor was so encouraging from the beginning, is that she was just like, all right, if you're on this super low dose and your blood levels are all fine and you're feeling good, what else are we trying to fix? And I was like, I have no expectations. I
Yeah,
don't have a set goal. I don't plan to just like show up a senator's wife at some point. That's not the point.
yeah.
It's just I'm a person that sees what's in the mirror and sees how people respond to me, and I don't understand it.
Huh. What do you not understand?
I don't understand how every behavior, how every affectation, how every accessory, personal accoutrement, how everything is gendered for no obvious reason. And everybody knows when they're dancing around the line because you know how socially people respond to you.
Hmm.
And I think that was for the longest time one of those things that I just came to accept. I came to accept the fact that if you want to blend in, you got to try and overcorrect. And I think that that's why you see so many guys out there today where it's like they're not taking care of their appearance, something along those lines. I feel like there's this awareness that you have this set of strictures placed on you, and you have to operate within them. Otherwise, you're going to draw undesired attention from somebody.
Yeah.
And now I draw undesired attention, but I also give fewer shits about it because it doesn't affect, again, my relationship with strangers. I don't care. I'm
How
not
long
here to
have
try.
how long have you been in a space of like full truth and just like moving into your as an artist, at least? Has it always been that way, or has it been like hard
Um,
to navigate?
it has been difficult to navigate, yeah, because there's the effort. That you look at some of the great films of history, and then you start talking about some of the analysis that's been done about them, and the allegories that people are finding in the depths of these scripts and screenplays. I struggle with the reality that I have always tried to hide behind the allegory. I've tried to hide behind the parables. I've tried to hide behind these manufactured realities instead of just talking about the real thing that's happening. And I sent you a project earlier from my SoundCloud. Um, Initially, that started off with me putting a bunch of effects and bullshit on top of it, so you could barely hear that it was me. And then my friend Judy just said, like, "Why are you putting all that garbage on top of it when you could just let it
Have it be
run
you. Yeah.
unedited?" I was like, "All right, well, I still want some pretty music behind it," so I did that. But
It's
but
beautiful,
ultimately,
man.
I cut out the garbage and I just spoke directly. And the only things that I edited out were stumbles of speech, which you can kind of hear the pace. I'm like ramped up and ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I'll attach the link in the show notes so people can hear it as well. It's beautiful. Like, does it have you been frustrated in your process throughout like the last while you've gotten here? Are you and are you are like arrived now, or are you still very much like in pursuit?
I am very much in pursuit. I have yet to do the thing that impresses me. I'm happy to be impressed at some point, but I've been doing a lot. I've done cool projects. I'm really pleased with the career that I've stitched together so far.
Yeah.
But it's in the last few years that I started to have this existential crisis about what am I even doing in this space? Why am I going to continue to play fake people for money that I know are just born out of whatever the machine's propaganda is for that day, for that episode, for that film, whatever it is?
Hmm.
There's always a message, and it's not the one that I'm trying to share because film, for all of its best intentions at trying to expand queer cinema, it still is hyper focused on heteronormative relationships because we're constantly trying to advertise that we want people to crank out babies.
And are you conflicted by even like participating in that space nowadays?
Not really. I don't know that I'm conflicted. I think I'm still happy to be a part of it because if you're inside the machine, you can affect it in theory. Like I know that's always the risk. You get stuck in the corporate machine and then you become the corporate machine. So then you don't want to comment on it anymore because your food
Right.
is dependent upon it.
Right.
But at least then, I can show people that we're not so different. I don't know how to express it any more cleanly than that. I think that's one of the areas where a lot of trans people get in trouble publicly by trying to generalize across a group that is not generalizable. Like if
Right.
you know that somebody's trans, what do you know about them? You know that they don't recognize what's in the mirror the same way that everybody else does.
Uh-huh.
That's about it. That's the only
Yeah.
unifying factor. That doesn't tell you anything about personal philosophy. It doesn't tell you anything about
Right.
political ideations, about career aspirations. It doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah. So does it? So like, because you're an actor, and so you can play a character. So it's just like, okay, cool. If you're playing a heteronormative character, then it's like that is what it is, right? Like you are just playing a character because you are an actor and you're capable of doing that thing. But does it maybe get um, convoluted based on like the character's message that it is portraying outwardly when it is like televised and published?
Potentially
Yeah,
published. Yeah, no,
published.
yeah, I mean, it very much does. I don't like
Yeah,
being associated with projects that I fundamentally disagree with, but
yeah.
that's the risk, right? That's why,
How many do you fundamentally disagree with
well, and
nowadays that you're going out for from your agents or managers? Like what, like fucking all these procedural cop dramas. I can't imagine you're just like, this is awesome. Like they're terrible for anybody.
right, right. Unless they've got something significant to say, like I shot a film earlier in the year and I got to play an FBI agent coming in to help stop a child trafficking ring. I've got absolutely no gripes about that. I want to
Right.
play an FBI agent that shuts down a child trafficking ring because I
Sure.
don't like children being trafficked.
Yeah.
That's super simple, but that's what I mean. Is it like that's the level of kind of binary thinking in the realm of entertainment, where
Yeah.
it's very difficult to find really good nuanced entertainment that lets you chew on ideas rather than be force fed an opinion.
Yeah. Gosh, man, it is so. I keep saying, and excuse my language. I don't know. I am a Neanderthal in this regard. Like, and I don't know if it matters or if you prefer me to say something different or if I've never been doing it right. But I've always just addressed you as Dan, the man. And so if
Yeah.
that's incorrect or if that's wrong of me, please correct me and tell me to shut the fuck up and say what I should do.
No, you're so great, and I appreciate even the consideration to that end. But you're totally fine. Again, that's what I'm saying. Is like I've picked up on your energy over a decade at this point, and I've never
Yeah.
concerned myself with whether or not you
Cool.
were fundamentally opposed to my existence. I never got that energy.
Cool. It's just,
And
I don't know. It's we're in a weird landscape, right
oh
now,
yeah,
especially. And so like, there's even more eyes on this stuff and protection against like, what should I say? How can I interact with you? If I don't do it this way, am I wrong? Am I on the wrong side of it? It's just like, wow, man, like it's, I'm not approaching this conversation from a place of like, oh, I'm scared to say the wrong thing or something. I feel safe enough to be very candid and just ask you from,
please
me to you.
always, please
Yeah.
always.
And I appreciate that. And I think that's what maybe we can all be doing more as it is. Just like, what the fucking difference does it really make? Like nothing.
Absolutely.
This
And that's
guy
the
is a
thing.
great actor. He is, like you're doing incredible work all around the country. You represent something that has everything to do with that thing on one hand, but on another hand, it has nothing to do with any of that stuff. And so you're just being you, trying to move through your life and build, cultivate a cool repertoire of artistic experiences.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think that anybody could point to me and say that I'm deluded about what I'm selling.
Hmm.
Like I go into the room knowing what they're seeing, and I go in knowing what I have to give them to book the job if I want the job, and then I leave. And it's as simple as that. And it's a simple transaction where I'm exactly what they see me to be. And I think that is ultimately the rub, right? Is that when I was giving into that, I started to get more and more depressed about it. Like one of the first commercials I booked when I moved to New York in 2011, 2012, I had to play like a thug, like a heavy, because,
Yeah.
again, I'm 6.5 feet tall and you put enough jackets on me and I look thick. And that's part of it is that they flew me to do this really great commercial. And I got to be a super heavy. But then, of course, by the end of the shoot, I'm showing the guys that are playing mobsters with me. I'm like, oh, and this is a time I had a really pretty dress on in Singapore.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what the fuck's going on here? I was like, you don't have to have any answers for it. You just have to accept the fact that your world is wider than you thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Has it been easier lately to just be you than it has been in the past, or has it been harder?
I think lately it has been because, I have the good fortune of being in my 40s. So
Yeah.
it's great. And I've kind of gotten past the point of I used to be super insecure about it, which is why the industry kind of preys on that, right? Like the entertainment industry loves to prey on insecurity. And if you're willing to just play the thing that they need you to play, then you'll still work and you'll be insecure about it and you'll be stressed out and wake up with anxiety about how you're going to pay the bills every night, regardless. And
Yeah.
out here, I'm doing a couple of simple day jobs and it's great. But the shows that I've been pitched on and the film work has all been compelling, good stuff. And a lot of it original. And I love doing original stuff. I don't need to be the 500,000th Hamlet. That doesn't do anything for my
Mm,
spirit. I'm
yeah.
here. I want to stop hiding behind the characters and I want to become the topic of the story. I'm not the person that plays the character in the story. I'm the person the story was written about.
Yeah. That's awesome. I
And
mean, there's already like this inherent insecurity that we have as artists, just in general, right? We're trying to navigate this space of, am I valuable? Am I worth anything? And really recognizing that you are, without the the approval of these gatekeepers, so to speak, or these casting directors or these producers or whoever, but because we're in an industry whereby, you are as good as what you have done. It's so seemingly unfair that we get kind of categorized by, somebody say you're an actor, somebody says, oh, well, what have I seen you in?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, well, I guess I could sit here and rifle off my resume to you, but that sounds like a stupid conversation to have. Like, but you wind up getting to a place where they're like, well, no, like, tell me, because I need you to validate, like, if you are an actor enough for me to qualify you as such. Just like, you find yourself trapped in
Right.
this space of like, why am I trying to qualify myself to you? You don't fucking, like, what do you do? And what celebrity did you do that with? Like, whatever, it's just like, we don't ask the same questions. And so there's like this inherent insecurity with just trying to like come up. And I think, like, I don't know, it seems like you have almost more of like a security with yourself because of your sense of who you are and what you have been able to do. And I have never seen you as being somebody that feels or acts insecure whatsoever. And when you tell me this information that's new to me, it it makes me think, like, my first thought is like, oh, well, that would probably make you so much more insecure. But in fact, no, I think maybe it makes you way more secure to be in your skin the way that you want to be being, and then like recognizing yourself to these people who, for me, as Julian is trying to get approval of, you're just like, I don't fucking care. Like, see, take it or leave it, bitch. It doesn't matter. And I don't know. I like, because I'm still contending with my own insecurities and my own self-worth and value in all of this stuff. And I measure it based on what I have done. And I try my best to not do that and change course. And I just wonder, like, has like, I guess, like, when was it the hardest for you to deal with like your own identity inside of it all? When was that? What time frame for you was it the hardest, and what was happening to make it that?
I think a big part of it was on the deconversion side of things because I grew up in a super religious environment. And I don't begrudge anybody for raising their kids in a super religious environment. It's just that it didn't suit me because it led me to hating myself for a thing that I didn't choose. And I think that's where it was, at that crossroads where I started deconverting and accepting the fact that, all right, so now I'm risking literal hell. And at this point, I feel like I can say I also had a pretty sloppy divorce at one point,
Oh yeah,
which
I
had
forgot
nothing
about
to do
that.
with my identity issues, had nothing to do with that. So it was just a matter of I was with the wrong person at the wrong time. And in the absence of that, in the wake of that destruction of a relationship, I feel like I learned so much more than I could have ever learned in college. I learned that I don't fear death. There are so many things worse than death. Death is not that big of a deal. And once you lose that fear, I think the confidence that I've been able to develop over the last few years has emerged in that space because you it is becomes a vacuum, right? Like there's something that is going to compel you onward, and you have to manufacture it for yourself if it's not coming out of an old book or out of a community of people. And I recognize that, again, because there are so many things worse than death, the the reality was is that it's going to hit eventually one day, whether I like it or not. And I can have chosen to live my life, or I could resign myself to just being an ideological slave for the rest of it. And that got tiresome after a while. And so
And did
now
you just like
I'm here.
exile yourself from that world completely and like move to New York? Is that what happened? Was that
Well,
the story?
basically, like
Yeah.
I went from school in Indiana to I worked in Florida for a couple of years, and that's I was working at the Jews for Jesus theme park that is the Holy Land experience in Orlando,
Nice.
Florida, which was a lot of fun at the time. To be entirely honest, I worked with a lot
Yeah.
of really talented people, really great
Cool.
singers, really great composers, and it was just a lot of fun. But then in the absence, it got picked up by a pretty gnarly organization that I think kind of exposed the leaning. And at that point, that's kind of towards the end of my ability to maintain the same beliefs that I was reared with. Um, I think At this side of things, I have grown to accept the fact that I don't have many answers that I can really point to. I know that
Yeah.
that's why the big books, the old books, are really important to people, is that they provide a lot of information for free that you don't have to think about and challenge and gestate. And I've arrived at a place where I don't have those answers that I wish that I had. Honestly, I wish that I could just go back to believing as I did, because it would make things so much easier.
Hmm.
But it's Pandora's box. Once it's open and once you see everything that was hidden in broad daylight, life becomes so much fuller and more threatening. And if you can still maintain that complete abject dispassion about pain or death or suffering or anything like that, everything becomes available.
Do you really wish that you could go back to that way of thinking?
Like in theory, like, there's this question that gets thrown around trans circles often, like, if you could just take a pill and feel good as a cis person, would you? And everybody's like, no. I'm like, okay, I would definitely. Like, you're an insane person to say that you wouldn't just want to feel okay in your skin. I think that that's part of it, is that once you can answer that question for yourself, would you definitely take the option that allows you to just feel comfortable in your community and your skin and your space? Yeah, I think everybody would. I'm
Hmm.
not going to speak for the people that really think they're iconoclasts, but I would love to be able to just reverse engineer everything that I know and just be happy and social and compliant, and probably not have a smartphone, because they seem to be
Oh
the
man,
bane
how
of
nice.
mental health at this
How
point.
good would that be?
Oh my God. I have these great aspirations of moving back to a flip phone and having no apps that matter at easy hand reach, and then just have everything on an iPad that
You
I
could do
can.
it.
You certainly can.
The whole
I'm,
like South Brooklyn Hasidic Jew community is all rocking their flip phones these days, dude.
yeah, baby.
It is enviable.
I want an LG Razor yesterday. I want to convince LG to go back to the 90s era configuration, the design, and just re-release it,
I want to
You
get
know,
a
just
Nokia and put lights on the back like a underglowed Suzuki Sidekick and fucking have it like light up and get all crazy like it used to. And I also want to play Snake all day long and
snake on
Brick
snake on
Breaker.
snake.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that
Oh
if you
yeah,
want to. You can,
for
but you're
sure.
not.
No,
So
no.
like what is it? What's keeping you going? What's like keeping you like in the space that you're in? What like is like because it's like it's so I ask myself this all the time. I'm like, God, it would be so much easier to just fuck off and like give up on all this
Yeah,
nonsense shit that I have like convinced myself that I'm worthy of doing and being and
yeah,
just going back to, Washington and being home next to my folks and getting a small little house and a couple pups and just fucking, working at Boeing or something and just being fine. But
yeah.
there's absolutely no way. And I don't know if it's like a mental health disorder or if it's like, an obsession or what it is with me that like compels me continuously. Yes, I love acting. I love being creative. I love this thing that I do, but like when I really break it down and ask myself why, and I really try to inform myself of that answer, um, I wind up on the end of being like, okay, cool. Like this it's pretty arbitrary, and like
Everything
I don't
is.
yeah, like I don't really know. I just know that it feels like I'm pulled to it almost. It's like I can't even explain it. My mom is just like, for a long time now, both my parents and most people in my circles understand what I'm doing and get it to a certain degree enough, mostly because of what I have done. Right. So they're like, they can attach it to like some level of quote unquote success.
This
So
is
they're like,
public.
okay,
The people know
yeah,
what this is.
exactly. So now they can make sense of it and be like, okay, cool. I can support what he's doing. But for a long time, and even still for me, I don't know when I'm in it. I don't know how to feel that way, and so it's just like, what is that thing? What is driving me? What is like getting me up in the morning and like making sure that I keep going forward toward this thing that I say I love so much, but that hurts me so bad so often. Like
What do you keep?
it's such a nasty relationship that I have with it, but it's also like the most passionate and like loving thing I've ever been able to like foster. And so it's like it's hard to navigate. I wonder if that resonates with you, if you feel like that relates to you, or if you like what drives you. You want a flip phone, but you're not doing it. What's your fucking excuse?
Yeah, you're right. I'm not immediately doing it. Yeah, I want to want to game plan this with Kate so we can sell my iPhone and help Kate get a more recent model,
Like
and then I'll get like a
actually
cheap
this.
iPad or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because no, we're in the process of trying to just negotiate how to make it happen with our competing phone plans and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Are you on
it'll come
you're
together.
on social media and stuff too, aren't you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I prefer Instagram if I'm going to use anything, but I know I
Yeah.
need to get into TikTok and make videos and content and blah blah blah
Not if you're
because
getting a
it's
flip phone.
2024. Now that
Not
I'm
if you're
getting a
going
flip
the
phone,
flip
I would
phone
just make
route.
it with my iPad, bro. That's the point.
Well, here's the weird part. I talk to a lot of musicians as well, right? Because of my relationship to guys like Alan Stone and his whole community of people. And so it's been really interesting to talk about the, like, from a musician's point of view, the artist that sits in a room and writes the music, and then the performer that gets on stage and like gives it to people, and
Yeah.
how different those two things are. And acting, in the conversation of acting, it being like, well, it kind of only a performative art form, right? Like it's not really, I mean, you can sit in your room and just like rehearse monologues all day and like, recite, put yourself on tape and do fun stuff like that, but you're not really doing that. That's not really what the work is. It really is a performative thing, but it's not always for people, even though it is consumed by people. That's kind of like the end goal for what the work looks like for an audience. And like when you are so in love with the act of doing the thing, but not necessarily like the other thing that it's attached to, which is like, you start putting people in front of you, and then there becomes anxiety. There becomes like this notion of like, oh, I need to do it a certain way so that I can get something, a rise out of these people that are in front of me, or these people that are on the opposite end of a phone that are watching my content on social media, or this whatever. And all of a sudden it changes the whole approach to what initially was just like conceived as the purest form of art that was in your soul and in your heart. It's just the acting that like is not diluted by any other idea or person or thing. It's just you being present in your artistic space. And that's what we're chasing as actors, right? Like always.
Some of us, because that's the thing, is that for every idea that you can have about somebody, why they got into the
Sure,
profession,
sure.
there's a cadre of people that are in it. Like
Totally.
there are people that literally only get into it because they like memorizing shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that, and you can tell too. And that's the thing. Like you see kind of what gets people going. Some people like hyper emotionalism. Some people really love to have conversations. Some people really love the business, the minutia. Like
Yeah.
it's any number of things. For me, I'm an absolute slut for relationships, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm trying to piece out this whole time, is trying to find out what it is that I missed in childhood about how people interconnect. Because again, it's like when you're hiding a part of yourself, it's like you're helping other people gaslight you. You're helping other
Mm.
people keep you in this little teeny tiny box, and you miss out on so much of the dynamism that exists between people.
Yeah, you're just
And
sabotaging your own experience.
yeah, and because the relationships are what's most important to me, I have less and less concern with performing the scripts at this point. I wouldn't say that I'm not interested in being an actor, because I certainly am, but it comes down to the text. If the text deserves to be live, I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And there are just so many pieces out. Like we did, there's a one night only version of Laramie Project directed by a gentleman
Oh,
named
I
Todd
saw that.
Nielsen out here. Yeah, we did it a week ago. It was on the previous Tuesday, and
Wow.
I got to read the track that includes Matthew Shepard's father, and
Mm,
the end of the show, the emotional crux of the entire piece is the statement that his dad reads in the courtroom to the chief offender, the primary murderer of his son,
mm-hmm.
and everybody gave me the props after the show, but I'm like, I just read it. That's all I did. I
Mm,
just did what his dad did, and I
yeah.
responded to it as a normal human father would. And in
Yeah.
that case, I was also enacting the reality that I wish that every father would enact in the presence of their queer identifying child or otherwise. It doesn't necessarily even need to be a queer identification. It could be any point of discord between a parent and a child,
Yeah.
anything that prevents you from having a functional, happy, healthy relationship. And I love my folks. I love them to death. I think they're the two greatest people on the planet.
Have you
And
always?
yeah, I always
Yeah.
have.
Mm-hmm.
I've loved the hell out of them. I respect them so much. And the only thing that I've ever said is that I wish the feeling were mutual.
Mm.
And I'm trying to get them there. And all they have to do is just accept the fact that I am a whole hell of a lot more than they even ordered.
Yeah. What a shame that they haven't been able to see that yet.
Well, I understand the mindset. Again, it just comes back to the fact that they don't want to do anything to hinder the ability to replace the next generation. You got
Sure,
to
but I
keep
mean, you could
people
do anything to.
swinging.
Yeah, but you can say whatever you need to say to like protect your own heart in like around the notion that they are who they are around it. But it's still like, it's a shame. It is for I don't know. I can't put words into your mouth and say it's a shame for you because whatever's true to you is true to you.
I will
But
echo that. It's a shame.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, when you were talking about doing the Laramie project, it and like doing good text and working on stuff that like really moves you and compels you. It came up for me that I remember doing The Normal Heart by Larry Kramer. Do you know this play? And like
What a hard piece.
I am a straight dude who like did this part just in like a scene study class, but it was playing Ned Weeks, who is like the protagonist of the play, and it all takes place like in the '80s during the AIDS epidemic in New York City, and
Yeah.
while like all of his friends and family members, not family members, but like friends and peers and people in his community are dying because nobody's willing to come in and help this crisis because
Yeah.
they're all like afraid that like homosexuality is this like taboo thing and that like AIDS are like are warranted and that they should be. It's like he is out here and he is fighting with all of his fucking life to try and change the narrative and nobody gives a fuck. And I remember doing this scene where he's like talking to his brother and his brother's like this big like political figure and he
Yeah.
has every ability to change the narrative himself. Everything at all the resources at his disposal, and he won't. And his brother is pleading with him. I, as a character, was pleading with him, and because of the text, it was like I fell right into that space, and it felt the most connected to a character I've ever been. Now, again, I'm a straight guy. I'm playing like a character who is, gay and is like trying to fight against this AIDS epidemic, and I have no correlation to that, but because of the text, because of the context of the piece, like I have never been more dialed in to a performance and to a character ever. Has nothing to do with me, and it's like my first indication that like, oh, right, I'm an actor. Oh, right, good writing actually will like transcend what I believe I'm even capable of doing. This was crazy for me. I went on to go like explore Larry Kramer, and he, eventually kind of like inspired my whole life as a writer and like everything that I've gone on to do, um, including like earlier iterations of this I America movie that I made and other things, and stuff that you read in the early days, and but it is so it is so true, and I feel like I'm in the same headspace as you, where I don't know. I'm saying this like I'm saying this for the first time, kind of out loud. But it's like I don't really want to be a part of the like this world that I have spent the almost 15 years trying to like claw my way into.
Yeah.
I don't. Like I want to act. I want to produce and write and facilitate art in a way that makes me moved and makes me excited. But I am a little bit, and I don't want to say that I'm done, because I will, I don't want to be somebody who is hypocritically taking like jobs because I need to, pay my rent and have a life. But I'm not inspired by that work anymore that I have done, which is, I'm grateful for it. It's amazing, but like there's something about moving my energy towards acting in a way that like actually moves me more than being like, oh my God, I got a script for Law and Order SVU and I cannot fucking wait to get on set and do this. It's just like, dude, again, like by all means, like I'm probably going to shoot myself in the face if this podcast gets successful and all these like casting directors are just like, well, all right, check that fucker off the list. He's not coming in anymore. But
Deuces.
honestly, I don't care. And I know that sounds like, I don't know what it sounds like, but like
It
I
sounds secure, to be honest.
I'm on your page, and I really want to be doing things that move me in a direction that don't feel uh painful anymore.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've been feeling that way too, despite whatever my experience is. We all do. And that is what this whole podcast has been like profoundly reminding me of, is that just like we are all going through tumultuous experiences by trying to navigate this artistic space. It is not, and the farther along you get, it doesn't get easier. It gets
No.
harder in a different way.
Yeah.
And how do you reconcile with that? How do you like take a second to stand? We don't get a lot of perspective because we're always in it, right? We're just like in it. And
Yeah.
so how can we take 10 steps back and really like look objectively at where we are and what we're doing and be like, oh, I want to take a shift. I think the pandemic was really wonderful for that reason, because it allowed us to take a couple steps back.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm honestly having a revelation now as we're talking, because I'm on the same page as you, and you're inspiring me to think that way as well. And I think you always have been. I think you always have actually been ahead of that with me. And I didn't necessarily know how to connect, because all I wanted to do was get successful with like a booking or like a TV show or a movie. And it's like those things will come.
But you're ahead of me in that too. Like you're way ahead of me in the hustle side of it, about making the connections. But I think that's the different motivations though too, right?
For
Because we're
sure.
coming at it from different perspectives. For me, the gigs are becoming less important than the message. And forgive me for saying so, but I really resonate with the idea that all art is propaganda. I know that that's not something that I generally find much agreement with when I mention it to people, but I see why entertainment exists. It's meant to convey a specific worldview and an idea about how to conduct yourself in a certain setting. And I am drawn to that. I want to be a part of driving the message. I want to be a part of making the community build up around a given line of thinking or a topic at hand. I I have this grand ambition of being able to be that all-in-one producer, writer, actor combo platter where I get to develop the relationships necessary to be the driver of culture. I want to have that sort of responsibility because again, if it comes down to winning an Oscar or leaving a legacy, I would way rather leave a legacy.
Yeah.
There, you can have physical children or you can have ideological children, and I'm gonna have ideological children, ideally all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I want to affect culture positively. I don't want to continue to maintain this whole left versus right dichotomy that completely ignores the fact that the only people profiting are the ones maintaining the divide between left and right.
I mean, how do you break the cycle? Like, do you do it in a how do you do it on a macro level, I guess, like rather than just doing it like within your own space, you know?
Do you have a specific topic that you're referencing in that respect?
In just like what in producing, let's say, film, and like how do you break the cycle of like what like the film being its own version of propaganda?
Well, and that's the thing, is that I don't know that you can break the native propagandistic nature of film, right? Like, it's whenever you record something, you're suggesting that people should pay attention to it, and by
Hmm.
suggesting that people should pay attention to it, it becomes a matter of whether or not they ultimately agree to. So you make the thing with the expectation that whatever it is that you imagined is worthy of putting it on screen, worthy of communicating to people. And for me, a big part of it is wrapped up in Laramie, for an example. Like, when text hits me so hard that I don't need to do anything, I know that I'm right in the pocket of what I need to be talking about, of the topics that need to find their way into my writing, because it's imperative that you resonate with what you're writing. Otherwise, you're going to make cynical bullshit that's a copy of a copy of a copy, and it's going to continue to dumb down until eventually we're just looking at our own navels and trying to find fuzz. It's ridiculous. We've gotten to the point where entertainment has been so stripped of any native compulsion, and it's just meant to occupy minds and eyes for an extended period of time and sell soap. Who
Well,
gives a shit?
what's native to you in this space?
For me, what's native, especially recently, is being able to communicate more effectively why I think that we're talking across purposes. Like, my family's fairly conservative, and I know why they think they hate trans people, but I could also open up the fact that they don't know what they're talking about. They are talking about a category, and they're not talking about people. They're talking about a category that, again, means absolutely nothing. If you know a group of 10 trans people, you know 10 trans people, and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't know what they individually are cut out of. You don't know what they're going to side for, vote for, buy, or consume. It's That's a huge part of it. Is I want to communicate how identical we all are, and how
Hmm.
everything that seems to be a differentiation point is just window dressing. Like, it's artificial, and it's usually ensconced in the news. We're not the ones that are creating these categories. We're the ones that are being pitted against each other for things that are coming at us externally.
Hmm.
I don't watch the news anymore. The news is a source of a lot of frustration for me, because it doesn't owe us the responsibility of being true. That's a
Right.
big part of why I got into entertainment in the first place, is that I love it when people know that I'm telling a lie,
Yeah.
or a thing
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not literally true. And that's even a point of argument that I've gotten into with actors. They're like, I'm telling the truth in this given circumstance. Okay, shut up. We all went to
Yeah.
class. Like, you're telling it as truthfully as you can, but it's a thing that's not literally true,
Yeah.
unless you're reading a documentary of a play like Laramie. But even that is still filtered through the lens of, this is meant to entertain on some level, even if it's just like disaster porn or torture porn or emotionalism. Again, it's like, give yourself any number of reasons why you are drawn to the type of entertainment you're drawn to, but just pay special attention to when your whole body starts to vibrate in the presence of a given idea or concept. I want all of conservative America to stop concerning themselves with trans people, because they don't know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
And until they do, or until they're willing to engage in conversation rather than just in, what is a woman? Tell me why it could possibly matter.
Hmm.
Well, just define it. Why? Why do I need to define somebody? I'm not going to treat somebody differently based on what I think's in their pants.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what do you think now with I mean, there's so much nuance in like the trans world happening around our culture, and you know, it seems a little convoluted almost too, to the extent of like, wow, like it's. I heard a group of kids the other day talking about like, um, uh, this girl was like, God, I just like, I like, I like, honestly, I'm gay. Like, I'm kind of gay. I mean, I've never been with another girl, but like, I'm just like, I know I'm gay. So it's like, fine. Cause like, I just want, and it's like, she was like, there with it because like, I feel like it's actually now for younger generations uncool to just be like heterosexual. And
Potentially, yeah.
And yes, there's a spectrum, but like I don't know, I don't have any problems with anybody, but it was just kind of caught me off guard because I was like, whoa, like that's crazy because 20 years ago or even 10, you know, like if they were like, oh, it's uncool to be straight, it was like you get your ass kicked when I was a kid for just being gay. And
Yeah.
so like, you know, now it's like trending to be gay, trending to be trans, trending like these ideas in their own right subsets in their own lanes. Like what is the popularity of that becoming a thing make you feel like
I think that grows out of a place of maybe one version of like extreme allyship or something like that, you know, where it's
mhm,
like you identify with something on paper. You're like, I'm an on paper lesbian or something like that, you know. Like in theory, I could see myself, dating another lady as a lady. But you know, it's also one of those things where if you're never presented with the opportunity and the environment where you feel safe to explore it, you're probably not going to.
yeah,
And so, like for me, I passed myself off as an extreme ally for a long time, you know, because that's the safest place to be when you're trying to deal with people that you don't hate. You know, I
right,
don't have any opposition to how people consensually get through life. It's
right,
it feels like the least toxic way to approach life, and it seems like so many people are resistant to allow others just that sense of space, the live and let
yeah,
liveness of it all.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
and
I do think that there is a trending aspect to it in some respects, but I think it's also there is that aspect that I grew up with, especially, which is just it's a phase. It's just a
mhm,
phase. It's going to
yeah,
pass. It's eventually going to go away. And you're like, okay, but if the phase is 20 years, is it a phase at that point, or is it just kind of a thing that you grew out of
right.
after having explored it for an extended period of time?
Well,
I
when
don't think
there's yeah, sorry, man.
you're all good.
When there are spokespeople who come up who are representing their, you know, allyship, so to speak, in potentially like a ill-informed way, and they're making a mockery, so to speak, of this whole entire like culture of people. But because they are so controversial, it's like it's almost like we're in this day and age. It's almost like well, I just want to like have to agree or say like yes, 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 I agree because I don't know how to say I disagree. But it's just like, dude, like a trans person can still be a shitty person. Like that's just
Absolutely.
like, and that's I think like what we forget in like this day and age because we're just like, oh, I'm not allowed to say this. This is like anybody like everybody can suck, you know, and everybody can be great. There are like they're just people like anybody else. So like
Yeah.
they can be shitty. And so like but I wonder because you know I see stuff not I don't watch a lot of news either, so I'm not really like fed pop culture a lot. I don't really know what's going on, but when it comes in enough to me, it's like oh, it's obviously you know this is obviously like big enough to be occupying this space if it's getting to me and I see people that are kind of making a mockery of this stuff and I'm like I don't even know what you were trying to represent here and I wonder if that like bugs you or if it's just like you know whatever live and let live if that continues to be the case in an era that we are all so like impressionable and like well we should like you know love this and this is good and yay 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 trans this person it's just like I don't know because I want to be able to be like no that bitch sucks you know and make up my mind and
Yeah.
if I think that and not feel like I'm like on the wrong side of history for saying that but also like knowing that there are probably a bajillion times more of those people that I'm like very much in love with and I'm totally aligned with. It's just
Yeah.
some people are shitty, some people aren't, but some people have a louder voice than others, and you know, unfortunately, they get to manipulate minds and you know influence a lot of people, and that's powerful.
Yeah.
So, does
But
that make you feel any kind of way?
well, I mean, I think to speak to your point, especially about being able to clock somebody as being particularly ignoble or shitty, you
Yeah,
know, like I think that's a huge part of it is that I'm not interested in categorizing people so broadly as to say you're part of this group. So that means that all of these things that I have presupposed as stereotypes are applicable to you. And I'm just going to ignore you outright. I, I think that that's the same toxic inverse of the fact that I just give everybody the opportunity to be their best selves. And if they don't want to pick up the ball, I'm probably not going to be around for very long because I don't want to deal with that kind of energy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to any category, there's no categorization that you can chop humanity up into where there's not going to be at least half of that population that kind of sucks.
Right.
They're going to be below average in any number of categories. Everybody's going to be, every category has that dynamic, right? That's
Right.
the whole reason that we're splitting off. Even, like you consider clergy or somebody that's supposed to be ethically and morally superior to the working class, we know that that's not true. We know that there are shitty people in every rank of life. So yeah, that's the trouble that I had before I moved here to Southern Oregon too, is that I was not prepared for an environment that gave so few shits about how other people live their lives. And it's been so rewarding,
I
but
bet.
because I spent the longest time trying to avoid what I thought were crazy trans people, because that's what the internet is populated with, right? The news stories always augment and highlight the people that are the extreme outliers so that you look as absurd as possible. And I speak for myself alone, but I can confidently say that I've met plenty of trans people that you would never know are trans people. And I'm not even suggesting that I'm among their rank. That will never be the
I mean, I
case.
was close friends with you for 10 years and I didn't know. So like that's,
Well,
and it, what different, yeah, exactly. But it goes to your point,
yeah.
Um, and so like when you are trying to cultivate art that and make and use your gifts to connect people to understanding that we're not all that different after all, but that is happening at the same time. How do we connect to those people as well? Not those people, not meaning like trans people at all, just those people as in like people that contradict the ideals in which you want to influence people by.
I think it comes back to kind of what you were talking about, even with creating the podcast, is that you're giving a platform for a conversation to happen. And I think, a lot of the conservative community that I grew up in have rightly clocked a lot of what Hollywood has tried to cram down their throats. They've been aware of the fact that there is this agenda to try and punch these ideas into people's faces over and over and over. And like for me, one of the things that I loved the most was, did you see the most recent Spider-Verse version, Across
I
the
haven't seen that
Spider-Verse?
yet. No, I haven't.
It's it's so great.
Cool.
It's just beautiful artwork, and the story is it's heartrending. It's
Nice.
so good. It's so good.
Nice.
And they don't have to tell you that the main character is trans. They just tip left, right, and center. And it got clocked for that, but I don't feel like it was preachy about any of it. I feel like it just presented, hey, this is a character that may or may not be trans, but even if they are or aren't, they don't have any problem with trans people. So let's just
Right.
start there and advertise the fact that there are normal, functioning, happy, healthy people out here who don't care how you identify,
Yeah.
because as long as you're not an asshole, we'll get along.
Are you
People don't
hopeful?
realize how low a bar it is to just not be an asshole.
I know. Why? Yeah, it's very troublesome because half the time it's just like, I when in thinking of just like hyper like masculinity and like these guys that are just like, no man, you fucking fuck you faggot, like those types of dudes that are just gonna like be aggressively mean and vicious towards this type of thing. It's typically like, I think you're afraid because maybe you are a little gay yourself. More often than not, I
Right.
think that's the case. And so that's where the fear comes from. It's just like, oh my God, like, that's why you go into like a big, I don't mean to generalize like, frat dudes or whatever, but like you go in and they're all like slapping each other's asses, like, dude, fucking like show us your dick, or fucking like, come on, man, like fucking take your pants off. Fucking what, how big's your fucking cog? Yeah, fucking, come on. It's just like, what is this, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
This is so like, we like you pull it out if you like, it's kind of like when you take one of those movies like Dumb and Dumber, but you put like scary music to it, and all of a sudden it becomes a horror. You're just like, whoa. Like if you take that out and you put it in a different context outside of a frat party, you're like,
super
Wow,
threatening.
this is a love story. Yeah, like this is like, what is this? You know, it's
Yeah,
very strange, and so
it
it's
is.
hard. It's hard to make sense of, and
But that's
y-
part of it though, right? Like that's part of how
yeah,
the mechanism works is that you constantly reinforce it. You constantly keep doing this obviously homoerotic nonsense, but you're like not turned on. So you're still butch. You still get to keep it
yeah,
in the can. And
yeah,
then you get to fuck the head cheerleader. Great.
yeah.
Good luck to you. Go wild. But if you're gonna need to carry that energy with you the rest of your life just to function in bed, that's gonna get tiresome after a while.
I reckon we're probably in the last generation of people who are going to continue to kind of fall in line with those narratives of like jock cheerleader. I don't know, maybe, but like it seems like because it's not cool to be heterosexual anymore, that like at least from what I heard from that conversation of those young kids who were like, in their like teens, like late teens or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, like, are you hopeful about the future, or are you scared?
I'm generally pretty hopeful. I
It's
again,
good.
it's like there's a sense of fear that I think is just so pervasive right now because it's an election cycle and we have to
Yeah,
concern ourselves with what happens at the federal level. And I just don't think that there's anything that anybody's going to be able to do at the federal level that has any support necessary to stifle a person's access to this thing. Again, I don't have any expectations of anything that hasn't already happened. I'm just taking a pill twice a day and I feel good about life. I don't feel
yeah.
super euphoric. I did make that mistake early on, was ramping up too high of a level. And I was in pregnant lady territory, which was wild. I just kind
What
of
was
lived
that
in my
like?
little, oh, I was just in a pink cloud. Everything was great.
Really?
Everybody was lovely. I didn't have anything kicking against my uterus, so I didn't care.
Why'd you
Um,
stop?
well, because it's not sustainable. You don't want to live at that level. Even my doctor was like,
What were
"We've
you
got to get this
doing?
down." Well, because I was upping it because the whole point is that you're supposed to try and use the estradiol to block your native testosterone production so that it kind of keeps your hormone cycle in check. But then it also, by virtue of the fact that you're taking a consistent dose, it's going to help moderate everything. So eventually, you're kind of at this place where you're at a consistent plateau without any of these extreme emotional highs and lows, which that is how masculinity maintains itself. You like go lift heavy shit and that's what releases the testosterone, and then you kind of earn your right to feel okay in your body. And I learned that, but that's again kind of immaterial for somebody that knows from such a young age. I was aware of it from my first awareness of myself, that there was a way that I wanted to conduct myself, the way that I would constantly get corrected for. And there were these, it was just this thing that would come up as an opportunity, around Halloween. Then, of course, Halloween's fine to just, do a thing that's a little different. And,
Yeah,
but if you do it the next day, faggot. Yeah,
yeah,
you've got to get it back in the closet, stuff it back in there. We don't want that out here in the wild. It's going to get on to people.
yeah. Come on, Dan. Put it
Clean
away.
it
Put it
up.
away. Put it back in
Yeah,
your pants.
dry it. Yeah, well,
So,
that's the thing. I never showed anybody. I try
yeah.
to keep it to myself.
Are you showing everybody now?
To a degree, I think part of it is just we get so fixated on hyper gendered clothing. We get so fixated on hyper gendered interactions and mannerisms, and I just don't care anymore. And
Yeah.
I got to show up here and do a bunch of shows kind of initially. One of the first things I did was this version of Sherlock Holmes and the Final Problem. I got to play Professor Moriarty, and it was great to just be pure evil. But even
Cool.
in that story, he's so queer coded because they want to make sure that the big bad guy that is objectively superior to our hero in some ways, that he's gay, so he can't be the best. And it was fun being able to play with that concept, that dynamic, because I also got to play a handful of other characters, one of which was a woman. And in a version of the first problem, we're doing Study in Scarlet this fall, with the same cast of tremendously talented people and the same writer director. Uh, I get to do the same thing. I get to play with gender in real time in such a way to kind of show people that this theatrical tradition of playing with gender blurring is there for a reason, because the theater has always been a safe space for non-conforming individuals to find a refuge, to find a community.
And that's
And
important to you to continue working towards shifting that perspective, that point of view
yeah,
from the mass.
which is why I don't get really bound up by the pronouns conversation. I'm a little too old to have concerned myself with pronouns. At this point, I just always tell anybody who asks, whatever energy I'm giving you, feel free to use that. Caitlin likes to use she, her pronouns with me, which is a lot of fun. And it's
I've never
euphoric within
had
the
that. I've
context of a
never
relationship,
I have never uh felt a feminine energy from you.
which is totally fine, which is my friend Danny out here. They suggest that the preferred pronouns are any and all. And I feel very similarly, where it's like, whatever you're getting from me. Um, Again, I know what I look like. I'm not deluded. I also know what has always been true is that it's not just what's on the surface.
Do
This
you
is
like
just
what
a vehicle.
do you like what you look like now?
I have, oh yeah, now for sure.
Yeah.
All throughout middle school, high school, I was like, what the hell is going on here? What is this ridiculous machine that's got what I think of as myself captured in it? And I just, I think I've gotten to the point now where it's like I'm starting to see myself through the, what was a chemical imbalance ultimately. I don't begrudge testosterone. It just wasn't in the right balance in my body. And now I feel fine. So I don't think that there's anything that really needs to change. I think I'm just here to exist and let people kind of acclimate to what the fuck is going on with this one,
Yeah.
which I
Do you
get a
look back?
lot of, as you can imagine, but it happens. I don't know if people are looking at me because I'm this size or if I look like
I
this, if
can't
I'm,
imagine because even like knowing, I'm just like I don't I you are to me just a presenting tall ass male who's handsome. That's like
and
what I see.
and it's fortunate that I think that that is the way that most people have responded up till now, because again, you get cast for what you look like and what you're able to do on a given performance, you know. But as far as reality is concerned, I again just not shying away from it. I think so many people overcorrect because they can't be honest about it,
Yeah.
and I, again, it's just one of those realities that I want people to understand just how imperceptible it is most of the time, and how people take such drastic and undesirable steps to try and account for it and to try and make it tolerable, not just for themselves, but for generally any community that they might have. I swear that that's the source of so much of the isolation in modernity, is that there are just so many people that feel cast off from society because they know that if anybody found out about this one thing about me, they would kick me to the curb.
Right.
And I
What's
think that's such
modernity?
a
What's modernity?
the contemporary era.
Ah,
You know, our 2024ness, where we're in this period where we've been discussing more or less half of our lives at this point publicly about sexuality and identity. And for the longest time, civilization was fine to just operate with don't ask, don't tell, don't do anything about it that's going to bring shame upon the family, and just keep it to yourself. And I'm glad that I happen to exist now where people don't have to lie. Again, honesty is such a crucial element for me. I was so fixated on the idea of the truth will set you free. And for the longest time, I always passed it through the religious lens of, no, the truth is what the Lord wants you to say to people because that's what fosters trust. And it does on some level, but it also prevents you from having to engage in relationships that are so tenuously grounded. If you're honest about who you are up front and somebody has a problem with it, you don't have to deal with them. And I would rather not deal with people that concern themselves with what happens in anybody else's pants.
yeah. I mean,
I just
truly.
don't understand why that's such a point of fixation. How is it that the people that are the most vocal and hostile towards a community are the ones that are so insecure about what they've got going on themselves? Insecure people should not be the ones legislating.
Well, that's a shame because it's all their eyes. It sucks.
I agree entirely.
Ugh.
But that's
Well,
where, you know, again, I have hope because nothing has ever really been different, you know, in my lifetime. I've always seen kind of the same dynamic because, again, it doesn't take a brilliant person to recognize that if you want to leave a genetic lineage, you got to make babies. If you want to make babies, you got to make them with somebody who's got the opposite plumbing of you. You want to find somebody who's got the opposite plumbing of you, you got to do something that might be vaguely interesting. Or you got to hope that they have no standards or something. You find the people that match up with what your specific criteria are, and you hope for the best. And I have always tried to be upfront and honest with any partner I've ever had. Like, this is what I'm dealing with. And if that's a problem, let's deuce now and forget about it.
Have you had relationships like that? I don't feel like you would foster relationships like that. Maybe like a long time ago, I guess, maybe, but
Well, it's like you grow up in an environment where you just kind of have to tolerate it, and you tolerate it. But
yeah.
then once you get to the age where you get to start selecting your community,
Yeah.
yeah, I've done a better job of selecting my community than I would have been foisted under.
Yeah. Good on you.
Yeah. Well, and yourself included. Like I said, like I've never gotten any energy from you that suggests that you're not a live and let live kind of guy.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I mean, I just am.
Yeah.
Period. I just
Right.
am. Um,
And I would love to say that I always have been, but I haven't
yeah,
been. Like I was super homophobic all throughout like middle school and high school. And that's the thing that I had to come to terms with
you
because it
were
was filtered
conditioned
through.
to being that, though. You weren't like
Absolutely.
intrinsically that.
Well, and I recognize that I am not homosexual by their definition. So then it was for me a target group that I could say like, yeah, well, at least
Yeah,
I'm not that, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's such a lame way to approach and pursue a life worth living. You can't define yourself by what you're not. You
Right.
can, it's just super lame. Why don't you find things that actually encourage you to live a life of any note, that encourage you to engage with people that might drive you to be the best version of yourself? Like the concept, I don't remember who the quote was, but just the idea that you're basically the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you
Hmm.
spend your time with shitty people that need you to be a shitty person, you're going to be a shitty person with shitty people.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and I think that's part of what you were mentioning before too, is just the idea that people look in and see what they need to see so that their life makes sense to them. And I never would want to disabuse anybody of that. I want people to live lives that make sense for them. And if that means they need to treat me like a male and call me Dan the Man, that's fine. But if they're okay with the plurality of options that exist within humanity and they want to call me Dan the Tran, that's fine too. It's one of those things that probably is never going to take off publicly because everybody's like, I don't think we can say that one. I don't think we can
yeah.
do that one. Okay, fine. Don't do that one then. Just call me Dan. That's my fucking name.
Yeah, no shit. Amen to that. You're a legend, Dan.
You're a
I really
legend, and this
I
is such a
really
great show.
I so appreciate you just being so transparent and like being understanding of my own ignorance and my own, naivete, because I you know, I don't know what I'm doing, but I am just so uh I'm so grateful that you exist in my life to be a leader and an educator in like this regard for me, and that I get to be able to like have this relationship with you and let it build and grow into something that is like even better every single next time than it was prior. And I've always felt that way about you. I've always like looked up to you and really admired the way that you are so eloquent and like beautiful in your like poetry of life. And it's just been like a real privilege to be your friend and to get to just spend quality time with you, because it's always been quality time with you. It's not like, let's get together and get drunk and like, fucking talk about how big our dicks are. That's like like the frat kids, it's like we are having every single time I've ever spent with you um has been really intentional and wonderful. From even like, I remember shooting some like audition tapes with you back in the day. I remember like drinking a whole bottle of wine at your apartment and like trying to get this audition tape that was just like, I don't even remember. I think that there was a cat, your cat or something like that was in the frame.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but all I know is that it's just always been a really wonderful experience to get to be in your presence and to feel your aura and to feel your energy. And you have always just been Dan to me, and always will continue to just be somebody that I admire and look up to, and honestly feel like an unofficial mentorship from. And it's like really, really profound, this relationship that I've been able to foster with you, man. So thank you so much for just being you and being in my orbit.
Dude, I could echo that whole thing, but you said it so perfectly. Yeah, I feel very similarly, where it's like we met, and it was one of those things where the relationship doesn't take any energy. You're just being yourself in time and space, and that's the type of resonance that I'm talking about. Those are the kind of people you want to gravitate toward, because you don't know when you're going to stumble across it. You just know when you see it. You know,
Right.
you see it in real time. And I would echo that sentiment entirely. I know that that's the actorness in me coming out, where it's like, I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't give a shit about the weather. But some people
Hmm.
only want to talk about the weather. So you get used
Right.
to setting your expectations at your ankles. And then when
Yeah.
you have these opportunities to unpack humanity, I love it. It's the Gemini-ness, it's the actorness, it's the desire to know, and it's the desire to expand and become part of this shared collective consciousness that we as a species get to create. And I've always loved the fact that you're as devoted an artist as you are. Like, I don't even know if you remember it. We had this one event on a rooftop, probably not far from your place.
Oh,
I want to say it was in Crown Point at that
yeah.
point.
The little art,
And
little art thing we
yeah,
did.
we had our art cult on Sunday nights, and I remember the group had kind of pieced together a little piece at one point. We'd kind of all contributed elements to it, and then you came in and just started fucking melting crayons and like building textures on top of it, and then we framed it, and you're like, "Fuck, we just did a thing. We just made an art baby." It was
Dude,
awesome. It was fantastic. I
it's
love it.
literally on my wall right now.
Dope.
It's framed. It's framed. The crayons that have been melted onto the like piece of paper with like little maze sketches, and it's like very strange and bizarre. But it was the energy, I guess, I was just feeling that night, and of course I remember that. It's always like I'm saying. It's always been this like I find, and this is pretty rare, but there are like a very small amount of people that when I get around, I am a I am a better artist than I am by myself. Like I can just like be, and it's not even necessarily about the art. It's just about like the me that I get to express. I find being around you, I have been able to find a version of myself that I actually like better than I have liked myself elsewhere, even when I'm just like alone. And that's like a testament to you and your energy and just being around you. So, um,
Man, that's such a great review. Like, I don't need to make a film ever again if that's the review on a life well lived. I would take that in an obituary any day
yeah,
of the week.
well, we can use it, my man. We can use it
Amazing.
indeed.
Oh, I'm so glad. No, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so glad that you've been able to continue pursuing the creation of dialogue, of community, and of education in a lot of ways. Like, how good's this? I had a great
How
time
good's
with that,
this?
you know.
Yeah,
Because again, COVID, I was cooped up in Japan at the time, and just having the ability to listen to you and Alan talk a bunch of shit with cool people, it was great. It
yeah,
was so much fun,
yeah,
and I loved your interview with him on this show too. Like, it's just that's the type of community that you build, you know, and it seems to resonate in every circle you find yourself in, because again, you're the unifying
totally,
element, you know.
totally.
I used to have that question about previous casts and shows that I've been a part of, you know, where it's somebody would grouse about something after the production had closed, you know, and I would say something to the effect of, I didn't realize that it was becoming such a toxic space. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, we didn't tell you. And I was like,
Mm,
okay. It makes me
right.
feel like a little church boy still again. But, you know, I just accept the fact that people have their own things to deal with. And if they want to talk about it, I'm usually there with an ear to bend. And I just try to conduct myself in a way that I would like other people to treat me with a similar consideration. And it tends to work out pretty well. Again, I know that it's for the same reason that I stopped getting my ass kicked in middle schools. I just grew taller than everyone. And
Mm,
they don't necessarily associate that with brute upper body strength, but
right.
it's compelling. So you just kind of don't anger the mantis, and
Yeah. Yeah,
and
well,
it,
it's all a big reminder for me to just continue to just be in your world, because we haven't chatted in too long, and
Way
it
too
makes me
long.
sad now that I'm reminded. I'm like, oh shit, come on,
Rat a
come
tat,
on,
baby. Yeah.
let's make some stuff. I mean, this is kind of that, but
Oh yeah.
to an even further degree, I want to see you, give you a big hug, and spend some actual quality time again with you, and work on some stuff together, because like I said, I feel like I am better in your presence, which is it's honest evaluation of just like what I'm being reminded of right now, um, through
God, you
you.
sweet.
God, yes, sweet too. Love you. And we also still have to finish our Godfather trilogy.
We got to finish number 3.
We got unfinished business.
We've got unfinished business, and I told Kate too that we've got to watch it because, again, if you don't know how the world works, you got to watch The Godfather. You got to figure it out. You got
I
to figure it
haven't
out
I
from the
haven't
ground up.
I haven't finished it because I didn't want to do it without you. It felt wrong.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously we have to get together ASAP then.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll save it for the next time, when next time we're together. But Dan, thank you so much for being on this show. It's such a refreshing breath of fresh air to just like get to experience you again.
Oh, I echo that entirely. It's such a pleasure to see you. It's a pleasure to pick your brain and root through the files that have been built up over the years. You're a treasure, a champion of a human being, and I can't wait to see how this show goes too, because you've had such great conversations already. I've loved every episode.
Yeah, they're all very they're saving me, man. They're really saving me in a really cool way. And not that I'm gonna die if I don't have it, but you know, I'm I'm stuck in my I'm stuck in my own head a lot, and so this is a really great way to kind of outsource a lot of my energy, and to just be with people that I love and reconnect. Look at this. Look what I get to
Yeah,
do now. It's just like it's
absolutely.
like the best hack to getting your friends to just like chat with you is just start a podcast, and then you can just start having combos again.
I'm absolutely going to talk to you about getting podcasting going because you have such a good system here that affords you the opportunity to fill your cup. I
Yeah,
think that's artistically so important.
it's
You
the
just got to
best.
keep refilling it and renewing it with the changing you that you are.
Absolutely.
We're all in process, baby.
We are all a process in progress, baby. Thanks for being on the show, Dan.
My pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for the invite.
I will talk to you hopefully very soon.
Count on it.
Bye bye.
See you soon.
Amen, baby. Amen. What a beautiful episode, am I right? God, you tell him, Dan. I love that human being so much. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that episode resonated with you. I hope there was something in there that you felt and touched you, moved you, inspired you, made you want to get up and do something new, something special. Certainly made me want to get out of the house and do something extraordinary with myself. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, your love and support is so meaningful and important to me. I really appreciate you being here. To share, follow wherever you're listening to this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube page. This is still a very small community that we have listening to this podcast, and I'm trying to build it out. I'm trying to build a studio. I'm trying to size up. I'm trying to level up. I'm trying to make this thing beautiful. We have a Patreon page now. I don't know if you guys are familiar or if you guys have heard about this Patreon page yet, but I'm putting a lot of really cool stuff on there. I got my whole film catalog up there. I got I Am Erica, the movie that I produced and acted in and wrote. I got some of the movies that Alan Stone and I made during the pandemic up there. I got some scripts going on up there. I'm doing a bi-weekly podcast just for you. It's all exclusive. It costs $5 a month and or more if you feel compelled to give more. I'm not opposed, but it's so helpful to building out this podcast and allowing me to kind of invest my time and energy into this thing because it really does take a lot of effort, and I'm doing my best. So I do have to make special shout outs to every single person who is here now and is part of this pod and part of this Patreon. We got Melissa Kennedy, love you, baby. Scott Scrivener, you are my executive producer, brother. Thank you so much. Stacy Walker, God, I love you. She just upped her membership this month. What a fucking sweetheart. I love her so much. Joe Chamas, thank you, brother. Jeremy Church, Mo Nowlin, Stephanie Travers, I love you. Laura Jower, yeah, baby, come on. Mom, oh, what are you doing here, Mom? Heather Schroeder, God, I love you. Let's Zoom soon. Griffin Phillips, welcome to New York, baby. I love you. Carter Adams, thank you so much. Steven Schuster, love you, baby. Can't wait to give you some puppet shows. Miguel, my hairstylist, what's happening, Miguel? Yeah, boy. Wayne and Joanne, whoa. Love you two. Greatest couple of all time. And we got Boomer Barry, baby. Let's go. Guys, every single week I will shout you out. I will credit you. I will send all sorts of wonderful stuff in that Patreon. It's going to be worth it. It's $5 a month. You won't even notice that money coming out of your pocket. And as much as I don't want to like push you to pay me money, it's fun. And it's like it's an investment worth making. I think, it's, I'm going to be doing some fun stuff on there. Puppet shows, I'm going to be fucking freestyle rapping. I'm going to be doing workshops on like how to produce a movie, how to produce a podcast. It'll be fun. It's going to be a really fun place to be. So make sure you check out patreon.com/the precipice of delusion. And make sure you share this podcast with anybody who might be interested. You got some artist friends or just some people who are, looking to get a little bit of thoughtful insight into the minds of people who have struggled with moving forward, but continuing somehow and being strong-willed, strong-minded, and persevering through the thickness of it all. The precipice of delusion is the place to be. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to get to know you. So comment, follow me on Instagram at Julian Gavilanis. Send a message to me if you want to. And we'll go from there. I love you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Mwah.
Now that's what I'm talking about.